All right, well, I think everybody's just about joined, so we can kind of get started here. Just to do introductions, I want to welcome and thank you all for joining us today to review lot traceability processes and really ultimately how riteSCAN can help automate and streamline those processes within your operations. We all may be at different points as far as lot traceability goes and understanding, so we're going to kind of go through a brief overview really from the high levels and get an understanding of what we're covering. So to introduce myself, my name is Ryan Winnicke and I'm an implementation and support specialist with riteSOFT here. So as we're going through the webinar today, if anyone experiences technical issues or isn't able to see the screen or hear me or anything like that, feel free to send a message via chat and we'll try to get that resolved for you right away. So feel free to, if you're having issues, let us know. Also, as we're going through the presentation, if questions come up or you think of something that you want to ask to get answered, feel free to submit that in the questions area and we'll answer all of those questions at the end of the presentation as well. So with that being said, let's get started. So if you're not familiar with riteSOFT, we were founded in 2006, and riteSOFT provides software solutions to automate data collection for small and medium-sized businesses, manufacturers, and distributors really around the globe. Our smart and seamless solutions, we have two products, RiteTime Labor Data Collection and riteSCAN Mobile Warehouse for SYSPRO, which is what we'll be talking about today. And what both of these products do is they leverage information and technology to really optimize the efficiency and sharpen our customers' competitive edge in the marketplace and their operations ultimately. It's a very competitive marketplace out there, and we know with changing times and changing trends, we got to find ways to keep up with those competitive things. riteSOFT, really what our focus is and our vision with our company is to provide easy-to-use software applications that automate and optimize warehouse and manufacturing operations in real time. So let's go ahead and let's start talking about lot traceability. Really, it's no secret. Lot traceability is at the forefront right now. Lot traceability creates lots of headlines in today's 24/7 media environment when consumer health and safety is impacted by faulty or contaminated products. What that leads to is large-scale product recalls, and we all hear about those. We've all heard the stories and things like that. And recalls and safety alerts are big news and cost companies billions of dollars. So it costs these companies billions of dollars, and it can affect any one of us. You may remember last fall when the Samsung's Galaxy 7 Note phone really dominated the headlines with stories of consumers that were harmed by their phones bursting into flames due to defective batteries and things like that. And Samsung actually recalled more than 2.5 million phones, which was estimated to cost the company about $5 billion. And we all understand those stories, and yes, that's a big headline, but guess what? These can affect us as well. So there's lots of scenarios that we want to prepare ourselves for and be able to get this visualization of lot traceability. Actually, the biggest auto recall in recent history involves the Takata airbag inflator. More than 100 million vehicles involving about 17 automakers have been recalled worldwide, including 69 million in the US alone. So given the magnitude of this recall, the process for replacing all of these things is really going to take years for them. In January, Honda actually added about 750,000 Honda and Acura vehicles to this recall list, and Ford added more than 800,000 vehicles to the list. So it's very impactful to us in our daily lives. In 2015, the Consumer Product Safety Commission actually reported 410 cooperative recalls. And in 2016, the USDA reported 122 recalls of 58 million pounds of meat products due to product contamination. And as you're starting to think about these things, think about how they may relate to your operations as well. You know, is it food industry? Is it vehicle recalls? Is it product recalls? Things like that. How can that affect you as well? The FDA reported 540 product recalls and market withdrawals or safety alerts in 2016 alone. So when a product is really subject to recall, the government inspection agency is really going to exert that pressure on the manufacturers to recall the defective products as soon as possible. And let me say, as soon as possible, it's a challenge. So in order to comply, you need accurate, reliable information that's easily accessible very quickly to get down to the bottom of things. So that's why automating your lot traceability processes is actually so critical, and doing it ahead of time to prevent getting into one of these situations. Product recall can really be your company's biggest threat to profitability. If a recall occurs, having an effective process that really helps you track lot numbers from the raw materials process to manufacturing to individual customer transactions, that's really what's going to make a huge difference in your ability to accurately pinpoint the customer that's impacted in a rapid manner and help minimize the impact that this may have on your business, giving you solutions and possibilities to move forward. So let's discuss what is lot traceability really. You know, some of you may be already using lot traceability and some may have thought about using it and things like that. So let's really get down to what is lot traceability. And what this means is simply it's the ability to identify what specific products from suppliers went into production processes and then ultimately to customers that received those finished goods. So lot traceability is giving you the insight into all of those components that went through these stages, allowing you to specifically track things all the way back to the supplier, really providing the raw materials and then all of the steps that that product went through in between when it was in your facility. So lot traceability really can take form in a number of methods. For lot traceability that may be used today by you guys, you may see some of these methods and say, hey, that's what we're doing today, or that's what we were doing previously until we implemented some better solution and things like that. And really there's a number of different methods that companies accomplish this. It can be the process of the manual clipboard that is out in the warehouse and the operator's writing it down as they're performing transactions with that specific lot number. They're just manually capturing it. It also could be spreadsheets. You could have a person that's dedicated to updating these spreadsheets and trying to keep track of all these different stock codes and lot numbers that are being used and where they're being used efficiently as well. The other way is people may file it with job records. So they may have people manually capturing this out on the floor and with a traveler. And then what they're doing with that traveler is actually filing that information for the circumstances of if they ever run into a situation. I have also seen people that actually scan these documents in. So they manually write this out on the shop floor and then they actually scan it into a database record so that they have a record of it. However, all of these methods are way that are manual processes to capture this data out on the shop floor. Some people also may be manually entering it into the ERP. So they may have some sort of method for capturing this information, and then another person's job is to just actually go through the manual process of updating their ERP system so that they get it into that system of record so they can follow it back. However, what we're ultimately trying to do is provide an automated, streamlined process that's going to perform what we just talked about here in a more effective and efficient manner in your operations. So let's take a look at the lot traceability process. So what does your process look like? Today we're going to kind of walk through the lot traceability processes from the very beginning stages upon receiving raw materials to finished goods actually being shipped out your doors and how that works with riteSCAN and how that works with SYSPRO to get a better understanding of all the different components and how they work together. So you may be performing parts of this process today, or you may even be performing all of these processes with riteSCAN or in your own processes that you guys have created to capture this lot traceability information. However, the ultimate goal that we discuss is to automate, streamline, and perform more accurate data capture on your warehouse floor where all these transactions are taking place. So really, let's kind of walk through that process, and it begins with the purchase order receiving. So that's going to be your raw materials. As they're coming in the door, you're going to want to receive them into inventory with that lot number and capture that information. However, from that point, as it's in inventory, you're going to want to be able to perform transactions like warehouse transfers, stock takes, bin movements, things like that with that lot number as well. From that point, it's going to go into production. And this is a key component. Production is where it goes from the conversion of the stock code subcomponent turning into a finished good inventory with a new lot number and relating all of those components together. And then finally, we get into the final steps of sales order picking and shipping it out to the customer, making sure that that data is valid that's going out to the customer with the product. So keeping that consistency and being able to track the flow of a lot through all of these processes, what's ultimately going to give you that visibility to understanding the life cycle of a specific lot throughout all of your different processes within your warehouse that you have going on. So now that we've kind of seen it from an overview, let's dive into each of these processes and take a look at how that works with riteSCAN and how that works with SYSPRO and how it works into your operations. So the first step is going to be receiving in raw material goods. So this is the initial point for lot traceability to really start the process flow, and materials are consumed by the next levels after that. So this is a key part of capturing that lot traceability right from the beginning stages. So what we're going to do is, if you see on screen, you're going to see the riteSCAN screen. So we're going to walk through that riteSCAN screen and see how a purchase order may be received in and how that works with lot traceability. So the operator is going to receive in the PO, and then they're going to receive in that stock code on the line item. And when they're doing that, they're going to be prompted if it's a lot traceable item. So in SYSPRO, if you have your stock code set up as lot traceable, riteSCAN is going to be smart enough to know, yes, this is a lot traceable item, and I need to provide that lot number to the system as I'm receiving it in. So in that lot number field, you'll notice that there's kind of three methodologies that I'd like to talk about today to how we get that lot number. So the first one is going to be SYSPRO's auto lot generation. Some of you may be using SYSPRO's auto lot generation today, and that's going to automatically generate a lot number that is fulfilled into this lot field here. The second method we're going to cover is riteSCAN recently came out with its own auto lot generation way of doing things as well. And what we've kind of added to that, because some people have found some limitations, what we've added is the ability to add in some of the parameters that allow you to kind of create a format for how you want to generate your lot numbers within your operations. So for example, in this case, if I want to generate a lot number and I want my lot number to contain the PO number, date, and say a unique identifier, I can set up that format in riteSCAN, and then within riteSCAN, it's going to automatically generate each lot number with that same format, creating a mechanism to generate those lot numbers automatically with those parameters set up. So the third way that we can look at entering in a lot number is the manual process. So if in SYSPRO you have manual lot generation on, you're going to be able to enter or scan in that lot number. And this can be used for a number of reasons. So some people may be receiving product from their suppliers pre-barcoded with their lot numbers and information on a predefined barcode label that they were able to get their suppliers to provide them. So as soon as they're receiving it in, they're scanning that lot number that the supplier provided on the barcode right in the system to be consumed downstream as well. So that's one reason why. Others may have processes that they've already built within their operations to define how they set up these lot numbers and things like that. So manual lot numbers also gives you that flexibility to keep with your same consistent processes you may be using today. The next field on riteSCAN that you're going to see is the expiry date field. So the expiry date field allows your operators to either scan or enter in that expiration date as they're receiving in the product, and that really helps define the criteria downstream in SYSPRO, not allowing operators to issue expired materials to jobs or things like that. So you're going to want to capture that information if it pertains to you guys as well. And riteSCAN allows you to do that right from this screen. The next thing you're going to do, once you have all the information filled out and you want to finalize this receipt and actually receive it into inventory, you're going to post the transaction. So when you post the transaction, there's two things that are going to happen. The first one is we're able to automate the label printing process. So if you're not having product predefined with labels, coming from your suppliers, you can automate the label printing process to generate a label and print it off and put it on your product to be consumed downstream. So you'll see on screen, I just have an example label here with the stock code and then a barcode for that stock code, and then the lot number and the lot number for stock lot number barcode. So that allows you to consume those barcodes downstream, really making it a much more effective process. At the bottom of your screen here, you're going to see the SYSPRO screen, and what that's going to show you is the transaction that occurred specifically with that lot number, giving you the lot traceability insight. So here you can see that lot stock code lot 112, lot number 100-101 was received on purchase order 478 now. So it's updating SYSPRO in real time and giving you that insight into what transaction actually occurred. So after you've done that, now you actually have it in inventory. So there's lots of different things that can happen once it's in inventory, from warehouse transfers, stock takes, inventory adjustments, and things like that. So after the product has come in the doors and now it's barcoded with a label, the stock code and lot information is going to really streamline your typical warehouse movements that you may perform or your operators may perform on a daily basis with those different types of inventory items. So for example, part of my lot may have to get divided into 2 separate bin locations. So I'm going to go through a bin transfer. However, the operator needs to also define that lot information that's being transferred in the bins. And what this does is this keeps the identity of the lot number in line with what the ERP system has. So we're updating the ERP system with that stock code lot number combination and really giving you that ultimate insight into what transaction happens. So for example, on screen here, you'll see on the riteSCAN screen, we're performing a warehouse transfer here. So I'm going to fill out my stock code, enter my quantity that I want to transfer, from where it's coming from, and then the lot number that I'm selecting. And what this does, in my warehouse end, I'm going to have my ability to select the lot numbers that are only within that warehouse specifically. So that keeps that data validity within the systems and making sure that they're transferring the correct items. So we're going to move them to warehouse E once I've entered that lot number and post this transaction. So after I post this transaction, I can go back into SYSPRO and look at my movements and look at my lot traceability query to see exactly what happened with that lot. So I can see those inventory movements. I can see that it moved from one warehouse to another and get insight into what's going on to help me identify things down the road. So riteSCAN or other warehouse automation systems are really what they're doing is they're helping automate these processes, just making them much faster and more accurate for your employees to perform these types of routine activities that they do on a daily basis and things like that. So lots of systems are able to help you automate that process. So after you go through your warehouse movements and things like that, the next step is going to be production. So once we get into production, this is where we want to make sure that the correct lots are being recorded in SYSPRO when we're issuing materials to the jobs, because this is a critical step where things are going into a parent item. So when you're faced with the situation of having to look back at what subcomponents went into a specific parent product, or you need to be able to identify the specific lot of subcomponents that went into that product, this is where you get that insight by capturing that information when you're performing those job issues. So in job issue, we're capturing the specific information that's being issued to the job and then updating the ERP system with all of this critical information as well at the same time. So at the time when the operators are actually issuing this, the lot number may not seem that relevant. However, in the future, it may be very critical data that is needed, and that's why you want to make sure you're capturing it and you're capturing it correctly into the system. So in the job issue screen here, so you'll see on the top right, we have riteSCAN again, and what we're performing is a job issue. And with that job issue, we're going to be issuing stock code 112 to this job. And we're issuing it at a quantity of 100, and we're issuing lot number 100-101. So we're keeping and capturing all of that information, validating it against the job to make sure we're issuing the correct quantities, the correct lot numbers, and the correct stock codes against this job specifically. So as soon as we post this transaction, again on the left, you're going to look at the SYSPRO screen to be able to see now the complete breakdown of these steps. So now I've received in this lot number on this right here. So you can see where I received it in. Then we went through an inventory movement. So that was that warehouse transfer that it went through. And then we also issued this to the job. So now we have that traceability of this product was issued to this job, relating everything at this level already as well. So once we go through that, the next steps that we're going to do is actually receiving in finished goods into inventory. So we're taking those raw materials and consuming them, and now we're receiving in a new finished good into inventory. So that new finished good, it may be made up of multiple subcomponents that have their own specific lot numbers. Some subcomponents may have lot numbers and others may not. So what we need is, we need at this point of the finished goods, we need to be able to identify a new unique lot number that identifies this new product moving forward for when it's picked and shipped and arrives to the customer actually. So let's take a look at how this works with riteSCAN as well. So in riteSCAN here, you're going to be looking at the job receipt screen. So we're still looking at job number 597, and we're wanting to receive in those finished goods. So I'm receiving those quantity of 100 of finished goods in, and now I'm back to the lot screen here. So you'll notice that it's highlighted in red. With that lot, here's where we're faced with the same issue as before in PO receipt. If you remember, there's three methods for how we're going to cover for generating those lots. That can be used with the SYSPRO auto lot generation, riteSCAN's auto lot generation with parameters, or a manual lot generation process. However, there is one caveat to this that I like to make sure that you know. It's the ability that if I set up in PO receipts that I am going to use SYSPRO's auto lot generation, I then have to use the auto lot generation within PO receipts to keep that data consistency throughout my operations as well. So you do have to follow the same usage throughout the different modules that are used for generating these lot numbers and things like that. That consistency is required. So with that being said, you're going to also enter in the expiration date for your product at this time as well. So you can enter that information in here as well. You could scan it in. If you have a predefined label, you could just scan that barcode in or have just your operator manually select it from the drop down here. So once you post this transaction, what's going to happen is the same thing. So now you're receiving your inventory in, and it's updating SYSPRO in real time. So now that's available inventory for that specific lot that we just created. However, you're also able to automate the label printing process at this point too. So if you're wanting to label your products at this point, you can generate those labels and print them out through the job receipt process as well. So it gives you a nice flexibility to starting to automate and streamline the different actions that need to take place within your warehouse. So now, as you notice in the SYSPRO screen, I'm able to drill down now on the new finished good lot and view all of the components that went into this product to see the full traceability into how the product was produced and where all the subcomponents originated from. So if we take a look here, we're really drilling down a long ways on this, and we can see all the way down to this, sorry, I gotta go back one, I accidentally clicked. We can go down to this lot 112 and see everything that went under that as well. So this is what's giving us that visibility into things and understanding exactly what happened in a very quick fashion. So, all right, let's go into the next steps. So some of the final steps, they revolve around tracking the finished goods to the customer. So all of this work that we do prior is only valid if we're making sure that this is getting to the customer and it keeps that consistency with valid data. So capturing the lot numbers that are sent to the customers and verifying those lots that are exactly what the warehouse operators picked and sent to the customer is critical to completing the process of lot traceability. We need to verify that what we're saying we're sending to customers is actually what the operators are picking and sending to those customers as well. It's just as critical of a component. So riteSCAN really helps facilitate this process of validating or capturing the lot numbers that are being picked by your operators out in the warehouse, and then what's being sent to the customer from the sales order. So riteSCAN is going to warn operators that try to scan the wrong lot number, for example, against the line that they're picking. So if you notice in the top right corner, you're going to see that error message. So if an operator tries to select the wrong lot number not associated with the order line, it's going to warn them and not allow them to pick that quantity of items because it's not what was expected to be picked. So we keep that data validation to make sure the operators are picking the correct items at that time that are being sent to the actual customers. And this is what ensures the data integrity within your ERP, ultimately giving you that full trace from raw materials coming in the door to finished goods being received by customers. So if you see here, we're taking a look at the riteSCAN picking module. So when I pick that line, I'm going to select the bin location that I'm pulling it from, and then the operator is going to scan that barcode for the lot number to validate and verify that they're picking the correct items that they're pulling at that time. So what riteSCAN is going to do is at that point, when they select pick, we're going to validate that they picked the right items, and then they're able to pull that and ship it to the customer. So we're providing that workflow to really make sure we keep that data validity, that things are being sent to customers, because it can be very important. Some of you may have very critical lot numbers that are being sent to customers. You may have very specific guidelines for what your customers are receiving, and you need to keep that validation, and you want to keep your customer success as well. So you want to keep your customers happy ultimately and have that traceability with your lot numbers. So now that we've kind of completed the process from start to finish, let's take a look at what it looks like in the ERP to give us that full insight into the life cycle of a raw material and finished goods that are actually sent to the customer. So what we can take a look at here is now we're going to see that full traceability. So I can start at the lot 100. So that was the finished good materials that we created through our job receipt. And I can trace that down to the job details. So that's job 597 here. I can see all of the components that were associated with that job, so everything that went into it. And now what I want to do is actually break it down to that lot 112 that we were taking a look at, that we received into PO receipts. So now I can see what happened with that specific stock code as well in that lot number. So I can see when it was received in, I can get all the information about that. I can see what transactions happened with it as well. So it went through a warehouse transfer. Okay, that helps me identify it one more level down and get every insight into what supplier provided this to me, when they provided it. All right, did it get moved into a separate warehouse that may have caused issues or something like that? And it really just gives you that full insight to get an idea of what happened with your products through their life cycle. So you may be asking the other question, and riteSCAN really helps provide that data to the ERP to have complete insight into this product, because you need to get that data into the system to be able to provide this insight that we're actually looking at here. And the product that was shipped to the customer and the lots that went into that product is all part of this overall process to getting an understanding of if you're ever faced with a situation of a recall or something like that, or you have something that goes wrong in your manufacturing process, you can narrow it back and help reduce the costs to your company because you have this insight into things. So this ultimately is going to save you time and money by having that better vision into what products are associated to what, and having the ability to trace them back to their origins quickly and easily with the combination of SYSPRO and riteSCAN actually capturing that data on the warehouse floor where the transactions are occurring as well. So let's talk, how does riteSCAN really help facilitate this process? And what riteSCAN does is riteSCAN puts all the efforts that companies put towards becoming a lot traceability company. riteSCAN helps facilitate this process in a number of different ways to ultimately increase the accuracy of transactions performed with lots. It streamlines the processes, making it faster for operators to do their job. What it ultimately also does is it keeps the data integrity and validation consistent with the warehouse operations and what's actually reflected in SYSPRO or your other ERP systems. And some of the things that really make all of these wheels turn are some of these components, and this is what really leads up to it. And it's the barcodes on your products. So barcoding things allows you that flexibility to make sure transactions are accurate. We don't have handwritten documents that we're trying to read or anything like that anymore. We have a single barcode that we scan. Also, riteSCAN provides the platform of lot validation in the different modules that it's necessary. So for example, when we looked at sales order picking, we want to make sure we're validating the lots that are being picked and making sure that the operators have a workflow that guides them along in this process to help them better do their jobs. riteSCAN also abides by SYSPRO's FIFO methods and things like that for picking the correct lot numbers to use first and guiding your operators into using the correct materials and the correct orders and things like that. Auto lot generation is also a key. You know, we talked about the different methods for how you can generate lots, you know, whether it's auto lot generation or manual. And what auto lot generation does is it helps keep consistency throughout your operations. It doesn't necessarily allow for mistakes and things like that. It really keeps that process in place, facilitating the lot traceability throughout all of your operations downstream. Being able to capture the expiration dates, that also helps. Now we're not allowed to issue materials to a job that may have expired or things like that. We're keeping that validation process in place, preventing mistakes and things like that. Also, what we're ultimately doing with riteSCAN is making data entry happen as close to the transaction as possible on the warehouse floor, helping prevent your operators from making errors. So if we're able to make that transaction happen as close to where it's actually happening, that's where we prevent these errors from happening and trying to go back and figure out what exactly happened when I'm trying to figure out why is inventory off a week later or something like that. It really helps things be prevented and keep that consistency within your systems. So let's kind of sum up what we all covered today. You know, with riteSCAN, it really helps facilitate that lot traceability process alongside SYSPRO, and they work very cohesively with each other to perform a streamlined manner that helps with the data integrity within SYSPRO and all of this lot information that is being captured in all of these different processes within your operations. So just to cover riteSCAN a little bit more, it's used in a variety of the different processes, kind of as we discussed today, you know, such as the material issues for manufacturing, receiving and order picking, inventory movements, and really what we're doing is we're bringing a way to perform the transaction on the warehouse floor and update SYSPRO at the same exact time. The benefit of this is providing real-time data in your ERP that is validated upon each transaction on the warehouse floor, ultimately leading to trustworthy, accurate data throughout your organization. Your customer service reps don't have to worry, was this PO actually received in? And is it in inventory to be used now, and things like that. It really gives you that real-time data integrity so people have trust in your system that inventory is correct, lot numbers are correct. They can go back and understand exactly what happened to all of the different operations and where a lot went through its life cycle. It starts to help put preventative measures in place so that if you were ever faced with a recall situation or you ran into an issue with a specific product that was sent to a customer, now what you can do is you can identify the other customers that that product might have been sent to with the affected material and things like that. All along the way, riteSCAN is helping you provide a streamlined manner to do all of these things, because ultimately what we need to do is we need to streamline your operations so that it makes it possible for you to capture this information very simply and very quickly for your operators as well. So riteSCAN provides that platform along SYSPRO, and there's a number of different cases that it can help be worked into your operational processes and things like that to get you to this point of full lot traceability with a product like riteSCAN and SYSPRO working together. So now that we've kind of covered the product, we'll open it up for questions here. And give me just a second as I start to look through some of these questions. Just a moment here. Sorry, this is really hard to read. So So one of the questions was, how does riteSCAN validate the lot numbers? So as I described earlier, so for example, let's just take a look at sales order picking. So if your operators or your customer service reps are entering in SYSPRO these sales orders, and you're assigning the actual lot numbers to be used because you have processes in place that customers require specific lot numbers or things like that that are requiring your customer service to assign this lot number information ahead of time as they're entering in the order. riteSCAN has built-in validation processes so that your operators abide by validating the order, the line, the stock code, as well as the bin location and lot number that they're selecting out on the warehouse floor. So it's going to go through that process and make sure that they're picking the correct items when they're scanning those barcodes and actually pulling the items for shipment to the customer. All right, give me just a second. I'm going to go through the next one here. So the next question so the next question was, can you show us how you generate labels at the different critical points upon PO receipt or job receipt? And we can talk about that. So we work with a number of different third-party label softwares. So if you have something already in place like Bartender or Nice Label, Easy Label, there's lots of Data Matrix is maybe one as well. What riteSCAN does is we have a process for setting up the data that is exported to these label softwares. And what the label softwares do is we're going to export it to a file folder, and then that label software has a product called Commander or something that's polling that folder, watching for new things that come into it. And as soon as it finds something new that comes into it, it's going to pull it out of there and automatically print it with the label format that you set up in it already. So as soon as that riteSCAN exports that transaction, the label software is going to see that file, fill in all the contents on your label format that you set up, and then automatically print it to your label printer. If you're interested after, we can also show you in more detail how that process works. Feel free to reach out to me and we can set something up to actually walk through what that looks like with the different types of label softwares, and we can go in more detail as well. Give me just a second here. Go to the next question. So how does riteSCAN generate lot numbers? That's a good question. So this is something that we recently released, and what it is we've developed a mechanism to automatically generate the lot numbers within riteSCAN. We've set up different variables that you can pull into the system. So for example, you could pull in within a PO transaction, you can pull in that PO number, and then you could pull in a specific generated unique lot number and then a date field, and you can combine all of those to make one unique lot number as well. So you could do the same thing within job receipts. So for example, one of the customers is using this within job receipts. They're using the job number, the expiry date, and a unique identifier to actually create their lot numbers within job receipts that it's generating, and it's generating it with all those components each time that there's a transaction performed. Very good question. Just a moment here. So one of the other questions isn't necessarily lot traceability, but it's the hardware. What types of devices does riteSCAN run on? And riteSCAN really can run on a number of different devices. It could run on the mobile handheld computers if you're familiar. So that's like your scanners that you typically see with a screen on them, and they're out on the floor scanning the items on the screen. It also works on tablets. There's some people that mount tablets to forklifts and things like that. So they have a tablet with a Bluetooth barcode scanner or something like that, so they can actually have some mobility, but the tablet itself is mounted to the forklift. There's also people that use simple methods such as just PCs or laptops and tablets out on their warehouse floor. I've seen people that rig up a cart with a tablet or with a laptop and a barcode printer or a barcode scanner and then a label printer all within one unit, and they're able to use that throughout their facility for picking processes, things like that. So it does work on a number of different devices to fulfill your needs, and they're all at different types of price points that can have their benefits and negatives and things like that. Let me see if there's any more questions here. All right, well, I think that answers all of the questions, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to join me today. If you do have more questions about lot traceability or riteSCAN, or if you want to reach out and we can cover label printing in more detail as well, because I know label printing is something people it's hard to get a vision for until you actually see it in action and things like that, and we can really help automate and facilitate that process seamlessly with a number of different ways. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit through this webinar, and look forward to our next webinar that we will have. Thank you, everyone.